Good afternoon from the KUOW newsroom. This is Seattle Now. I'm Paige Browning with today's top stories. It's Thursday, May 7th. And actually, not so fast. Before we bring today's news, I want to invite you to make Seattle your Give Big partner. It's Give Big this week, a fundraiser for nonprofits, including our station, KUOW. This week, we're inviting you to join KUOW as a donor to power this very show, Seattle Now, and local news. Seattle Now keeps you up to date on what's going on in Seattle, and we know it means a lot to you, so if you can share a few bucks today, just tap on the link in the show notes, and thank you so much. Our top story is about ICE. A new report from the UW Center for Human Rights is raising questions about how Tacoma's immigrant lockup handles sexual assault investigations. Gustavo Segrero reports.
The analysis from the Human Rights Group looked at a decade of sexual assault reports at the detention facility from 2015 to 2025. They found over 170 individual cases of sexual assault, but only 19 were found credible. The reports are investigations conducted by Immigration and Customs Enforcement in GEO Group, the private contractor. Angelina Godoy directs the Human Rights Center and says the facility investigating itself is a problem.
They have these elaborate accountability mechanisms and choose simply to ignore them because they assume there will never be any consequences for them.
A spokesperson for GEO Group argues they take all allegations of sexual abuse seriously and have policies to identify, investigate, and remedy reported cases. A 2023 investigation from the Department of Homeland Security found that administrators at the Tacoma Immigrant Lockup failed to meet standards for its sexual assault reviews. Gustavo Segrero, KUOW News.
News with national ties continued. The company that owns Washington's last coal-fired power plant in Centralia says the Trump administration order to keep it open has cost nearly $20 million. The plant had been scheduled to shut down at the end of 2025, and it has not been producing energy, but Trump's order has kept the doors open. Washington State and a group of environmental advocates sued the Trump administration over the order in January, saying it would likely raise energy costs. We've got a few stories today where the budget doesn't look so good. The superintendent of Seattle Public Schools is warning the district could be insolvent as soon as next year. As Noelle Gasca reports, the alert comes ahead of budget season.
During a presentation to the school board Wednesday night, Superintendent Ben Schuldiner said that if the district did nothing to change its spending, its fund balance would hit zero sometime in 2027.
For multiple years, SPS has planned and actual expenditures have exceeded revenue. And that's why we have dipped over and over again from our fund balance, meaning we are spending more than we are taking in. And that cannot continue.
Schuldiner is proposing cutting spending at the district's central office and refocusing staffing investments. Along with other one-time solutions, the district estimates it could save as much as $87 million. The school board is slated to vote on the budget in August. Noelle Gasca, KUOW News.
The stress continues at Sound Transit, which has a projected budget shortfall of nearly $35 billion. But don't fret just yet. At a packed town hall meeting this week, King County leaders said they believe they can address the problem without cutting any of the region's planned light rail extensions. KNKX Murrow News fellow Nate Sanford has more.
In recent months, Sound Transit's budget problems have cast doubt on plans to expand light rail to Everett, Tacoma, Ballard, and West Seattle. Transit advocates in those communities are now rallying to save their stations. But at the town hall in Seattle, King County Executive Gurmai Zahalai and other Seattle area leaders said they still believe it's possible to deliver all 4 connections as promised.
The question is not whether we build the trains. The only question in front of us is how.
Sound Transit will need to find a lot of money to avoid cuts. Elected leaders floated a rental car tax, increasing the agency's ability to take on debt, and asking the state legislature for help. I'm Nate Sanford, reporting.
A World Cup report for today. Hospitality bookings are falling short of what Seattle hotel owners had expected, according to a new report from the American Hotel and Lodging Association. This industry group says nearly 80% of the owners they surveyed have weaker than expected bookings. It's a trend hitting most World Cup host cities. The report says that geopolitical turmoil, barriers to getting visas, and the rising cost of air travel are the culprits. The tourism group Visit Seattle says there is still time to make up the shortfall. Two short stories of note. Today, Seattle Mayor Katie Wilson announced a new tiny house village will open in South Park. The mayor's office says the city signed a lease on a property that'll house 90 units and will include supportive services. The goal is to have it ready in the next few months. A coalition of Seattle area businesses and nonprofits is contributing $3 million. And we're learning today about more potential buyers of the Seahawks. The sports business publication Sportico is reporting billionaire Vinod Khosla is prepping a bid to buy the team. He is the co-founder of Sun Microsystems and currently a minority owner of the San Francisco 49ers. According to Sportico, two other potential bidders are both currently co-owners of the Boston Celtics. The team is officially for sale, which was the directive from the late Paul Allen. Now, our feature story today. The Seattle Metropolitan Chamber of Commerce hired a new CEO. The selection of Joe Nguyen last December was a bit surprising to some. He's a former Democratic state senator and Washington Commerce Secretary with a history of supporting very progressive taxes and policies. Seattle Times reporter David Croman wrote about the change playing out, and he spoke with KUOW's Kim Malcolm.
So you've got this funny note in your piece about when was contacted and recruited for this job, and you write that he asked, "You guys know who I am, right?" Kind of like even he was a little bit surprised by the call, it sounds like. Can you talk a little bit about why he may have said that?
Yeah, because, in 2018, Nguyen ran for state senator, and he was pretty unabashedly progressive and pro taxes on the rich and corporations in Washington state. He, at one point, by The Stranger, was compared to Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the Democratic Socialist from New York. He gave a lot of very kind of confident quotes to left-wing publications about how we're coming for taxes and we're not going to stop there. And he was really spoke with a lot of bravado about overhauling the state's tax code to land heavier on the wealthy. And, a lot of the proposals that he did eventually offer while in the legislature were sort of exactly what the Chamber of Commerce has fought against. They were proposals on payroll taxes or wealth taxes or high income taxes that they see as driving business out of Washington state and that they oppose. And so the fact that here we are, 7 years later after he was first elected on that progressive platform, leading the organization that opposed a lot of those early policies that animated his rise, was quite surprising.
You write about Nguyen having a change of heart when it comes to progressive measures, especially around taxing and spending. Talk a little bit about that. How has he shifted on that?
Yeah, so, again, early on in his career in the legislature, he was very pro-taxes. He really defined himself as being the pro-tax guy in the legislature. But I think he shifted pretty quickly when he realized that, in his view, just being pro-tax wasn't really getting him anywhere, and it wasn't really gaining traction. And so he tried to redefine himself as, basically being a little more of a nuts and bolts guy, spending time in the budget and trying to analyze which programs are working in the state. And so in his telling, he says, it's not that I'm necessarily anti-tax anymore, but my ideas for what that tax should buy and how effective that should be have been shaped and shifted by the time that I've spent in the legislature. Now he sounds a little bit more like, the kind of standard Democrat of the Seattle area, which is we can stomach taxes when we believe they are worthwhile, but the chamber and Nguyen by extension now believes a lot of the taxes that are being discussed now and proposed are not worthwhile.
And it's interesting that this is happening at the same time that two major audits have come down from King County, which have raised some serious red flags about how money is tracked and how it's allocated. I know that's at the county level, but Seattle's a big part of that. What do you think the chamber is reading from that?
I think it's affirming in some ways to the stance that they've taken on a lot of issues. You could point back to the payroll tax on Amazon or some of their opposition to the tax to fund new social housing in Seattle, which is They have always said, we are an organization that can be convinced to support new taxes. And they point to their support for sound transit and support for some of the local property tax levies for transportation. But if we don't believe that outcomes are going to be there, then we can't get behind that. And I think they view some of the results coming out of King County as evidence that they are correct in this, that the money is not necessarily being well spent. The counter argument is these issues have gotten much larger and much thornier and more difficult to wrap your arms around. And it's naive to believe that you can tackle an issue like homelessness without new funding. But that is kind of the tension between those two viewpoints.
Seattle Times reporter David Croman speaking with KUOW's Kim Malcolm. Before we go today, our old friend is heavy on our hearts today. We are remembering our KUOW colleague, Kevin Deers. 1 year ago, Kevin died at the age of 39. Kevin was an announcer and board operator at KUOW, but man, he was so much more. He was a bright light at KUOW, a friend, a wonderful colleague, and we miss him a lot. Thinking about you, Kevin. Rock on. Next time on Seattle Now, Seattle may be preparing for a summer crowd that it's not going to get.
That's like number one for party hosting, you know? It's like,
yes.
you can make all the preparations, you have all the invitations, you remind people, and then day of, you just kind of have to rock with what you've been given.
Hotel bookings ahead of the FIFA World Cup are underwhelming. Hear that and more tomorrow morning. That's all for today from the KUOW Newsroom in Seattle. Our producers, Andy Hurst, and I'm Paige Browning. Seattle Now and KUOW are members of the NPR network. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you tomorrow.